Shalom to everybody. We're glad to be back and have an opportunity. It's a beautiful day here in Missouri. Nice, cool day with sunshine. And I ask you guys to remember we have some that have a stomach virus that's going on. So the course of things are going to be a little bit different today. But I hope that you'll be blessed and that in everything we do according to the will of Elohim. And so if we do that, then truly we already have been blessed. We are Barak. In other words, Elohim has come and knelt in front of us. What a beautiful thought that is, and that comes out in the Aaronic blessing that we've been looking at. That may Elohim kneel in front of you, which is the proper context of the word Barak in Hebrew, as far as blessing goes. So. Have many scriptures to share. We're going to have a first section, which is where I'm going to continue with the righteous teaching. We're going to take 10 or 15 minutes, and we'll get our bread and our cup prepared, and I'm sure you'll do the same. By then, you probably will need to use the bathroom, and then about 10 minutes, we'll come back together, and we'll pick back up in the Book of Joshua. So I hope you be attentive, and I hope you're blessed. I hope you're looking for more from Elohim. I hope that you desire to walk in his presence, because it's highly possible. I won't say it's, that it is true for everybody, but it's highly possible for most people that it may very well be that we, in many ways, lack understanding as to what's really being said. Don't be surprised, because we're probably in pretty good shape compared to the mass majority if you're judging yourself amongst yourselves. On the other side, being the best in the bad doesn't make you good. And so let's focus on being good and seeing Elohim's character and then obeying the things that he told us. I'm going to show you some things I think are pretty earth-shattering, and we have quite a more to go, and I'll talk about some of those things later. So once again, shalom to you. We're going to pray, and Dave's going to bless us with blowing the shofar. Elohim, we bless you today. We thank you for all your goodness. We thank you for the wonderful love that you've shown us. You are Elohim, our Elohim. And I ask you that your will be done. I ask that your words be presented clearly, that they might help people understand that as much as we have come out, that we may still have further to go. And that further then can only be accomplished by you, by your spirit of wisdom and your spirit of understanding and many other things I desire to speak on. So I bless you today. I ask you to come with us, protect us, touch the eyes and the ears and the hearts of all of those who may accidentally come by or intentionally come by. And that your will be worked out in this earth, even if it be in just a few folks. I thank you for your goodness today. Amen. Well, we got a lot of stuff. I want to kind of pick back up and go back. This is an extended projection, a thing that has really been with me for quite some time. I suspect by the time I get to the end of it, whenever that is, more than a week or two, I suspect that I will have found a new breath and will probably be ready to go again. So I'll try to be kind, and some of this stuff may be for many of us a little bit hard to deal with. We were taught some things, and I'm certainly ongoing research about things such as, when did human sacrifice start? Folks, do you know that the Chinese were doing human sacrifice for salvation over 5,000 years ago? It's not a new concept, folks. Just like virgin births are not new concepts. And so I think oftentimes we really have been duped, because we've been told that we don't need to do anything but read the Bible. And if all you ever read is the Bible, all you'll ever know is the Bible. Now, what if there's pieces, and what if maybe accidentally somebody read that anyone who changes even a word of this will be cursed. What if they read that and they chose in their belief system not to care? Then it wouldn't be difficult for them to change, and certainly that is the case. Rome was not scared of Elohim, folks. And I think that has been played out to the umpteenth thousandth. So we will continue on to look and to search and to claw, looking for the truth. I hope that's your heart. I hope that's your motive. I don't really care what it is, honestly, personally, what y'all wants from us, as long as I find out what it is, and then I have the opportunity to give it to him. And I think that you're going to find out that maybe that should be the stance of our hearts on a continual basis. Oftentimes, I've heard people say, well, that's not what I believe, or that's not what that means to me. And, really, there's only one response to that. Okay. If you don't believe what he says, what he clearly shows, and you've done the research, and you've searched history, and you've studied, and you're confident that your belief, I think that's wonderful. I think you probably should follow your convictions. Otherwise, you would be a fake and a hypocrite. And I'd rather see an honest, wicked person than I would a lying, righteous person. Are you with me? There's a huge difference in those two things. So we're going to, first off, I wanted to go back to this word righteous in the Hebrew. What does it mean? The word righteous in Hebrew is the word zadik. We find that, and for those of you that I shared and gave hundreds of dollars of books away to by Robert Eisenman about the righteous one, James, funny enough that history really proves out that Yeshua was of no significance and James was the guy. So yet again, I hate to say this, but I absolutely am convinced from historical study that James was the deal and Rome hid him from you. It was done intentionally. But you find in a lot of the writings, and many really, really super good scholars, infinitely and more intelligent probably than most of us will ever be, that have, after studying for 30 and 40 years, the Dead Sea Scrolls, have come to the point that they absolutely unequivocally believe that James was the righteous teacher, the Zadik. And so the word Zadik is very significant, maybe more so to Hebrew people than Western people, but I'm not interested in living life like a Western person. So I have to then learn some things and get some tools that I never had before. So a Zadik is a righteous person, or even more appropriately, a righteous teacher would be considered to be Zadik, or righteous. So we can see a much clearer picture if we pay attention to things that do exist that come out of history. In this situation, the Dead Sea Scrolls are all pre-Rome. It's the closest to what we have to being something that was possibly not corrupted by Rome. In fact, most believe that they were hid in the caves in Qumran to keep them from the Romans getting them. That's why you can't go back and find any historical proof of this so-called Jesus. He's mentioned twice in the book of Josephus. Come on, guys, let's wake up and use our critical thinking mind. Do you really think the guy that's being paid by Rome, a turncoat Jewish nobility, would write the histories of the Jews and leave out the guy that's walking around doing all of these magnificent shamanistic miracles all over the place, if that actually happened? So there's many things that go with all of that. Anyways, his brother did rule and he was killed. He's also the only one who actually had the place in all of Israel. And many of you have read this and not understood that James, it said of James that his knees, he's called James the Just or James the Zealot, and that has a lot of significance, but it says that his knees were as the knees of camels. And if you know anything about camels, camels bow and they put their weight on their knees when they go down. And it said of James that his knees were as the knees of camel from the time he spent praying. Well, what we don't know is that James was the only one in Israel who had the approval and the ability to go into the temple in Jerusalem by himself. Wow, that's huge. And nobody talks about him. He's mentioned twice in the book of Luke at the end. After you get through the fake stuff and get to the end of Luke, you actually find a little bit that's historical. And all of a sudden, James the zealous, James the just, pops up in the picture, and Paul knows fully who he is. They're enemies. So, unfortunately, another, yet again, lie that's exposed. So, I'd like to read a few scriptures. You know, when I say a few scriptures, that means more than one, right? There's no end to that few. Few can be 100 for me. And so I just want to go through. I want to also put some disclaimers out there. I am not exhaustively trying to bring out every scripture in the Bible that tells us something to do with righteousness. There are many of them that are not here. It's not by accident. It's not that I don't know they're there. Many of them in context are good, and they certainly tie to what I'm trying to get people to focus on, which is a different way to think, both about Elohim as well as about their self. And it's very important how we think about ourselves, because how we think about ourselves is going to determine how we think about Him. And there's, you know, Christianity and the worldview out there. Heck, now Christianity is even being, you know, Christianity was the liberal thing forever. You just had to believe in somebody who committed human sacrifice for you. And now the rest of the left pagan world isn't even accepting Christianity. So, wow, we're kind of miles away from where those people exist. And so I hope you're glad about that, because if you are, then you truly are Barak. You truly are blessed. And so Bereshit 7, chapter 7 of the book of Genesis, I'm going to read just a few verses here. I want to start because I think it's the most appropriate place to start is with Noah. And I could teach for 2 hours just on Noah and show you some really crazy things that resemble what I shared last week. Remember last week? Remember, we went through the scriptures that tell us Elohim said, I did not bring you out. I did not bring you in because of you or your righteousness. I did it because of my word. And so I hope that if you were here last week, I hope that you will, because I'm dropping keywords that you're supposed to hold on to, because those keywords help make how you look at a picture. It's like rose-colored glasses, kind of. If you have the colored glasses that filter out all the past, in other words, our past of Christianity and what Western belief is and what liberalism says, if you filter out all of those things, just like the New Testament, if you filter out all of the Hellenistic Greek, you get down originally to a relatively Hebraic doctrine, which is why Yeshua taught in Matthew 5 that we're supposed to keep the Torah and the Torah is eternal. That's kind of funny from a guy who tells everybody to quit worrying about the Torah. I just can't buy those two. So somebody's lying somewhere. I don't think Yeshua was lying. I think when I'm done with that document that I'm working on of the purging out of the book of Matthew, everything that has to do with Christianity, you're going to find a 100% sold document that may very well would have come out of a first century Hebrew's mouth. But it's not the book of Matthew. So, Bereshit 7, verse 1. And YEHOVAH said unto Noah, Come you and all of your house into the ark. For I have seen righteous, for you have I seen righteous before me. And a key thought that I want to grab a hold of. YEHOVAH uses people that he sees righteous. He sees them righteous before they even recognize their place. And so that's something very huge that maybe we have to keep a hold of. He keeps injecting in my thoughts, in my study, and I'm going to show you this as we go forward. You'll actually see the scriptures tell us what I'm going to say to you. Every human being has a plan that was laid out before them. Everything that is in existence has a plan, has a purpose, and even more importantly, has a path. And I will show you as we go along that it's not very difficult for something to get out of place, to do their own will, and to walk away from Elohim's path. That's significant. If we desire to find salvation from the true King, Elohim, who is the Redeemer. So, for you have I seen righteous before me in this generation. So YEHOVAH says to Noah, I've looked at everyone that exists, and I see you to be righteous. So if in fact, because here's really the key point. What is it that we need to be righteous to? Do we need to be righteous to the people that we're with? Not that we don't need to be, but is that the priority? Is the priority that we need to be righteous to Christianity, or I would say a religious belief system? Well, unfortunately, the whole concept of Elohim and righteousness, folks, is about you being righteous to him. If you are, and if he, as we see here with Noah, if he looks at you in your generation and you are righteous, well, what does righteous mean then? Because how can you be it if you don't even know what it is? Something that is righteous, the whole concept is almost more than our human minds can deal with. But it certainly means that we will line up, dig this, with Yah's purpose that he put in you for the path that you were put on. Stop and ponder that for a minute. Because what I just personally did in one sentence is obliterated 90% of everything that we've been taught our whole life. Righteousness doesn't have anything to do with anything except you and him. The path that was intended before you were ever put on this earth is still there. The only question that there is are you walking the path? For the Son to be righteous, the Son must continue on a cycle every day to come up on one side of the earth and go down on the other side of the earth and come up on the opposite side of the earth and go down on the opposite side of the earth. And as long as the Son does that continually and does not fail, the Son is righteous in Elohim's eyes. You say, well, that's kind of a silly thing. You might be surprised that I'm not at all silly. In fact, I'm absolutely correct. So I digress. Let's go forward. For I have seen righteous before me in this generation. I have seen you, Noah, as being righteous. Or in other words, I have seen you walking the path that I set out before you. Please hold on to that. If you diminish the words that I'm sharing with you, I'm sorrowful for you, but I'm afraid that we're getting too close to some things that aren't going to be really good. And the only people that are going to make it through what's coming, according to what he's told me recently, the only ones who are going to make it through are the people who are listening to this kind of teaching. It's not games as it's always been. In fact, very soon, if you want to call them games, I use that term. People don't like it because people tell me constantly when I say that, oh, well, I'm not playing a game. Okay, well, whatever word you want to use then. So, for I have seen you to be righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast you shall take to you by sevens, the male and his female, and of the beasts that are not clean by two, and the male and his female. Of fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all of the earth, for yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noach did according unto all that YEHOVAH commanded him, and Noach was 600 years old. So Noach was found righteous, walking the path that Elohim had set out for him. See, we don't know very much, so we can't really discern very much. But there's a lot in that statement. There's a lot that's going to determine the end of our life. I'm curious, I'm concerned for everyone, whether I know you or don't, for all of us, that somehow we may come short at the end. Go with me, if you would, from there. So I needed to establish that point. Humans that are on this earth are walking in front of Elohim. Here's the thing that's important, folks. Are you walking the path he intended for you? Because there is option A and there's option B. Option A is to be walking his path. How will you know what his path is if he doesn't tell you? And he won't tell you if you're not trying to walk his path. So it actually is a setup. That's why he tells us in the 10 words, the 10 mitzvot, the 10 commandments, he says to us that you will be blessed if you walk this path. You will be cursed if you don't. And there's no option for another. There's no third. I don't get to be halfway blessed and halfway. I see people all the time and they say words that are mindlessly because they heard some preacher stand on Sun Worship Day and tell them how blessed they were because they know about this one that blood sacrificed for them. And then they puke that all over everybody as if they really know what they're talking about, when in fact they actually are proving how much they don't know. I digress again. Let's go to chapter 15 of the book of Bereshit. Bereshit, Genesis, in the beginning. And we'll go through the first 8 verses here in chapter 15. After these things, the word of YEHOVAH came unto Avram in a vision. So we got a little picture of who this Noach was. The flood and all of that is incidental. It doesn't matter what Yah would have chosen to do. The points that are important is that the person he chose to do it, please listen to me today. The person that he chose to save, because he is the Savior of the world, he is the Redeemer, the person he chose to save in Noach, out of everyone that existed on the face of this earth, the only person that he chose to save, the children were secondary, was the one who was walking righteously before him. What if that is really where the fulfillment of straight is the gate and narrow is the way and few? What if you really believe, oh, well, maybe 50 million people out of 7 billion will make it, and what if that number is only 50? The Jews believe that at least there's 70 tzaddiks on the earth at all time, or the earth would fail to exist. I don't know where they got the 70 from, but 70 sounds like a right number to me. There ain't many, in other words, is what the point. Conjure that. What is that, 1/10,000th? 70 people out of 7 billion people? What does that come to? 100 billion thousandth? I don't know. And after these words of YEHOVAH came unto Avraham in a vision, saying, Fear not, Avram, I am your shield and your exceeding great reward. And Avram said, Adonai YEHOVAH, what will you give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus? And Avram said, Behold, to me you have given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is my heir. And behold, the word of YEHOVAH came unto him, saying, This shall not be your heir, but he that shall come forth out of your own generation shall be your heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and he said, Look now towards the heavens, and count the stars, if you be able to number them. And he said unto him, so shall your seed be. And he believed in YEHOVAH, and he counted it to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am YEHOVAH that brought you out of the of the Chaldean to give you this land to inherit it. Well, whether you know it or not, folks, they were using blood sacrifice and human sacrifice for salvation in of Chaldee. I think that's quite strange that the Romans would sell you the same crap that Elohim took Avram out of. Wow, that's kind of a huge thing to me. Maybe not to you. Maybe you just happy with being saved by the blood that's going to send you to the pit, but I ain't. So stop and ponder the thought for a minute. I wanted to drop this because there's been a lot of contention, and I believe there's some truth to it. I think that I've seen two camps on this statement that I'm going to make, and I think both are accurate. I think it's not one or the other. I think it's actually both. So this whole concept that's always been accounted, they used it in the New Testament, that Avram believed Elohim and it was accounted to him. Which him? We're talking about two hims. Elohim isn't considered a she, contrary to feminism. Okay? Elohim has a masculine trait. Yes, does he have a feminine trait? Yes, of course he did. The dominant is the masculine trait. So it's not that it's not there, ladies. He wouldn't have known how to make a woman if he didn't have some kind of feminine aspects to him. That's some of where men get their kindness is from his feminine aspects. But Avram believed Elohim, and that was accounted to Abram for righteousness. The Hebrews don't believe that interpretation. It's Rome's interpretation. That's Paul's interpretation. And really, Paul never probably wrote that, but it's possible he did, since he was a Herodian. But also, and I think it's the greater piece, I'll err on the side of the Hebrew, but I think both are actually correct. But the Hebraic mindset about Avram being righteous because he believed Yah actually is counteracted by the fact that Elohim, because Avram believed him, Elohim saw Avram as righteous. Now, have we heard in this dissertation this morning, have we heard of anyone who Elohim saw them as righteousness? So just put that in your list of notes. You should have 35 notebooks by the time we get done with righteous and righteousness. So if we have Noah being seen by Elohim before all the earth and his generation, we're told verbatim that Elohim saw him. So wouldn't it stand to reason that Elohim saw Avram also? So do you see how beautiful that is? Now we have a different concept. Now we have an Elohim who sees who a righteous person is, and that righteous person proves they're righteous. Why? Because they believe Elohim. It's actually infinitely prettier than what they teach you in the New Testament, because it's not one or the other. This is a synergistic package, folks. Elohim speaks things to me, and I believe him, and because I believe him, that makes me something to him. When he tells us things, and we say, I don't believe that, that makes us something to him. Huge. As again, I could teach 2 days just on this. So let's go, if you would, to the book of Vayikra. The book of Leviticus. Lots of struggles and lots of questions in the book of Leviticus. I'm sure that some of you have that have to do with the sacrifices and stuff. I won't go into that. I'm not interested. I've shared very clearly from the beginning to the end, and now I'm starting to find historical data that proves that human sacrifices were never part of Elohim. So then where did all of these human sacrifices, where did all of these animal sacrifices come from? Can I tell you? I don't believe Elohim ever told them one time ever to sacrifice an animal. Ever. Now here's something, because I taught this. I was a good steward of Elohim's words, and I showed y'all clearly. Isn't it amazing to you that we have all of these books that are written, and they are very definitely questionable. All of them. But we have all of these books that are written, and we can go and read 7 of the major prophets that Elohim sent, rising up early and sending my prophet. And every one of those 7 major prophets tells us the same thing somewhere in their writings, that Elohim has never required any form of sacrifice, that the sacrifice Elohim wants from us from Samuel, which we will get to in a few months, is our obedience. I'm going to show you something that has to do with that. It's beautiful. Elohim is true and he is right if we will just listen to him. So Avram was righteous. Why? He was righteous because Elohim looked at him in his generation and he saw that he was righteous, and Abraham proved his righteousness by believing and obeying Elohim. Do you get the process? Noah, had he not built a ship, had he not gathered the animals, would have ceased to be righteous in Elohim. It is vitally important that we know from Elohim what our path is. And nobody is telling anybody that. Most don't even know that there was a preordained path put in every one of our lives. Only few will find that path. Vayikra, chapter 19. This is kind of, some of these are steps along the way that go with righteousness, but I do think this is quite strange in light of the lies that were taught us by the Romans about we're not supposed to judge. I'll give you a reason why they told you that lie. Because what they didn't want you to do is make any judgments of their lies. And it's worked. 5,000 years down the road, man, people still believe that nonsense. But I want you to see what Elohim says about such things. That's what's really important. Okay, so chapter 19, and we're going to pick up in verse 15. And just read a couple of verses. As I said, I'm not trying to be exhaustive. All of these things that I'm sharing, I could expand these, and I'm trying to move on because there's so many principles that if we will continue and pay attention and be a good student and spend some time during the week doing something other than watching TV or playing on your phone, you might actually learn something. So here we go, folks. Look at this. You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. So in other words, you shall not get off of the path that I put judgment there for. Judgment is the path. And I put you there to do judgment, and you will not get off of the judgment key, the judgment that Elohim put here. Once again, the path is preordained. Judgment had a path. Grace had a path. And those things must be fulfilled in that path. So look, you shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. You shall not respect the person of the poor, which we do constantly and habitually, nor honor the person of the mighty, which we do tenfold over the first one. But in righteousness, dig on this. Are you hearing me? We now have a story over here written by Rome, and we have the Elohim talking to humanity saying, what? But in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor. Now, I don't know how you make those two go together and be the same thing, folks, but there's two gods working two different messages here. They can't coexist. You can't not judge and judge righteously. You can't. Because if you judge righteously and somebody is unrighteous, guess what you're going to do? You're going to make them unhappy. And since all of Christianity is about not making people unhappy, unless it brings more money into the church, and then I'll step over that line a little bit. And you shall not go up and down as a talebearer amongst your people, neither shall you stand against the blood of your neighbor. Just so you get it, I am YEHOVAH. Notice that didn't say Jesus. I am YEHOVAH. So YEHOVAH says not only are we supposed to judge, you're guilty and condemned if you judge unrighteously. Why? Because you have left Elohim's path for righteousness. Is anybody tracking with that? It actually has some of the greatest ramifications in our lives, and this teaching will probably be the least listened to, and yet the most potent teaching I've ever done in 30 years. My interest is to help people who don't know the truth find the path that they're supposed to be living and then walk that path. And maybe when they get to the end of it, they will have been seen by Elohim to be that in the course of their lifetime. Because it's a given fact that if you don't, folks, you're doomed already. Not if, you are. Ties back to the first commandment. Everything is under the guise of those 10 words, folks. Everything I'm going to show you today is all geared around what does he want. Go with me to the book of Deuteronomy. I'm not in a hurry. I hope you aren't either. I got coffee I ain't drank yet. Okay. We're going to jump right off. You got to be kidding me. In Deuteronomy chapter 1, if you would. We're going to see a furtherance of the last concept. If you listen to the last concept, it actually is very specific. It doesn't seem necessarily specifically, it is dealing with the judges, but it's also a generic type statement because it has to do with me judging my neighbor. And I have to. If you don't judge your neighbor, you walk around, and I've watched this in Christianity. It used to totally blow me away. I would have these people in my church, and they would talk about how they had said all of these cool things to their family members who were known wicked people. And so they say to the wicked, well, God won't put us through anything we can't go through. Honey, I don't know who you talking to, but Elohim sees exactly who that person is, even if you can't. Can I tell you what that is? That you're viewing the people around you with respect of person. Even the New Testament tells us not to have respect of person. Oh, I'm sorry, that was James who said that. Another Hebrewic trait. Why didn't Paul say that? Because Paul was a Herodian, a family member to one of the most corrupt kings in Palestine. In case you didn't know, you should go read. You should maybe find out. So let's see what Elohim says. Verse 16, Deuteronomy 1. And I charged at your judges at that time, saying, hear the causes between your brethren, and judge righteously between every man. So we at least have it in the mouth of two witnesses that Elohim himself said to judge your neighbor righteously. In the mouth of two or three, a thing will be what? I think I have established the point. If I don't establish anything else in your mind, I feel comfortable that I have established the point that Elohim wants us to judge those around us righteously. And if they're unrighteous and you say they're righteous, you also are unrighteous. We don't see that. We're not taught that. If a preacher stands in the pulpit and lies to you and tells you, come back tomorrow on Sun Worship Day and we're going to praise God, and you buy that nonsense, shame on you, you deserve destruction. That is unrighteousness. Wow. So, and I charged amongst your tribes, and I charged your judges at that time, saying, hear the causes before your brethren, and judge righteously between every man and his brother. So look here, I want you to see how this whole thing that I've been talking about, how it's all encompassing. Because look, the judges don't get to just judge like the Jews over there, like people to believe that what the Jews do is for the Jews exclusively. And it's not, nor has it ever been. That's also another corrupt doctrine. But here is the truth. We are not only supposed to judge righteously every man, between every man, we're also supposed to judge not just between our brethren, but the strangers as well. So then that means that I'm supposed to judge how a Christian person behaves and see it for what it is and not say that it's good. Remember the statement? We don't get this, but I am telling you some things that might save your life. Woe unto those who call evil good. If you call Christianity good, my friend, in Elohim's eyes, you are wicked. Not if, not maybe. Now, your preacher can probably take you to 20,000 Roman scriptures that'll tell you you're okay if you worship the false god. Go if that's where you want to be. I'm not interested in going there. I've been there and it stinks to high heaven. I want to go where Elohim is, find my path that I'm supposed to walk on, so when Elohim looks at me, what he sees is righteousness. I think that's a worthwhile life cause. I'm a rebel with a cause. Wow, think about that. So if he charges at the highest level, which would be the judges, and if you read it in context, you find that those are descending. Those with over thousands, those over hundreds, those over 50s, those over 5s, all of those people. Well, every one of us have at least 5 people in our life that we're supposed, that we have a supernatural tie to. I have grandchildren, I have children, I have wives, and all of those things, I am required to judge them. Unless, of course, you don't believe that a man is supposed to be the king. In which case, there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to help you anyways. Sorrowful about that, but it is the truth. So, can we be blessed still? I don't know if we can or not. I don't know if we can be Barak or not. But I think maybe we can. Turn with me to Deuteronomy chapter 4, just a few steps away from where he told us that all the judges of the earth, whether you're judging 5 people or whether you're judging 50,000 people, you must judge righteously. Now, I haven't given you, and it's been intentional, I would like for some people to actually think and come away with something and grow and maybe begin to grab a conviction, a conscience, that you're not your own. And if you are, then there's no purpose for you to listen to me. I'm not speaking to those who are their own. I'm not speaking to the Elvises who can do it their way. Elvis did it his way. Look at what it did. It brought millions of dollars, and he laid in the floor in a bathroom with a needle hanging out of his butt. Mariana's shaking her head because she heard that he had a heart attack. Maybe he had a heart attack from the needle got stuck in his butt. I don't know. But I'll leave that to somebody else. But nonetheless, it's obvious he wasn't a righteous man, even if he did sing gospel songs. So let's look at this. How do we come to the wisdom and understanding? I've been studying the seven spirits of Elohim. Wow, really shocking. The spirit of wisdom, the spirit of understanding. Wow. The things that Elohim has to offer to humanity are the things most humanity doesn't have any value in. Pretty crazy conundrum, really. You don't see it in Christianity. They believe if you pray to their precipitous image, that you somehow, if you wear your graven image around your neck, which I'm going to show you, some of these things pop up as well. So I'm not so far off the beaten track. But we engrave things of wooden things, and we meld them or we carve them, and we put them around our neck. I know you may not understand the historical significance of wearing things, but everything that our society does has a meaning that predates us by 4,000 years, like earrings and necklaces and finger rings. And can I tell you, none of those things are good. They talk about slavery. Well, what if I told you that Elohim sees every human that exists on the face of this earth with earrings in their ears? He sees every one of them as slaves, because an earring was the mark of a slave. So the black people ain't got it bad. I'll say it like this: humanity has it bad. Verse 1, now therefore hearken, O Yisrael, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them. And I love this. It's so beautiful. When I really begin to get the revelation that everything Elohim tells us that we hate to do, all the things that you're arguing inside, you're struggling inside yourself, you don't care about unclean, you want to know why we have to sleep in tents at Sukkot, you don't believe that we have to eat crackers or lamb, yada, 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 yada. All of those things are very, very clear as to his perspective. What it really says to us is we're really ignorant and really don't even have a clue about what the truth is. Because if you knew the truth and you studied, then you would find out, then you would be forced with the reality that you got to make a decision now, because you do know. That's why most people say, I love ignorance is bliss. No, friend, ignorance is just ignorance. It won't be good at Judgment Day. Now therefore hearken, O Yisrael, unto the statutes and unto the judgments. And this, we're here for a purpose. Unto the statutes and the judgments. So what is it, folks? If Elohim is telling humanity here by Moshe in the book of Devarim, and he is telling us that we need to hearken unto his statutes and his judgments, what does that mean? What does it mean? Does it mean that it's a good possibility that if we don't, we might lose sight of those things? Is it possible? Have we learned anything in the Bible to recognize that the people to which this was given did exactly as Elohim would? And I'm going to show you that he knew it all along. So, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them. What is the purpose? So I'm going to answer a handful of questions today. What is the purpose for us keeping the commandments? And you say, well, when I ate pig and had a nice ham on Ishtar Day, I didn't die. Or did you? Maybe your picture of death, you think the body has something to do with death. Death doesn't have anything to do with your body, friends. Death is a signal to what happens to your spirit after. It's a signal. That's all life is a signal. This person is righteous before Elohim this day, or this person is not righteous before Elohim. They've walked a different path than him. And I could get into several word studies that are 2 and 3 and 4 pages long about this concept. Listen, it's not foreign. It's only foreign to people who are closed-minded and won't get outside of Christianity. I'm sorrowful. So, here's we go. Which I teach you for to do them so that you may live. And I got this revelation. YEHOVAH was working with me about 2 months ago, and it always has, he always does this. He's always a step ahead of where he's taken me. Just so you know, all of a sudden, after my Shabbat service last week, there's several new teachings up about righteousness. I think that's quite strange. I receive emails from somebody I haven't heard from in 6 months, and now all of a sudden I say something on YouTube, and all of a sudden there are other supposed Messianic Torah teachers that are going to tell you what righteousness is. Maybe it's coincidence, but maybe it's not. You know, got to clean up those things that I'm guilty of. I don't want that to be exposed, that I might be guilty of something. That you may live and go in and possess the land which YEHOVAH Elohai of your father gives you. So you do see here, folks, very clearly that they're not hearkening to the commands and scriptures would have once again stopped. They're going into the land. Now, once they got in the land, guess what they did? They stopped. Yah's not surprised. He said that was going to happen. He told Moshe that was going to happen. I could have brought that in and it would have added another 5 hours to it. That you may live and go in and possess the land which YEHOVAH Elohai of your fathers gives to you, not because of your righteousness, but because of Abraham, the word he gave to the righteous Abraham. The rainbow in the sky isn't for you. The rainbow in the sky is a sign to Noah that he's never going to do this again. Who was the righteous one that he was talking? Who was the righteous teacher that he was talking to? Noah and Avram, up till this point. You shall not add unto the word which I command you. So I could say to you, if one, and I'm quite sure it wasn't one, but hundreds of rabbis wrote in here, well, we need to add another sacrifice, and we need to change Passover, which is a memorial to Elohim of what he did in Mitzrayim, which is also a memorial to me of what he did in Mitzrayim, because he also brought me out of sin. So that's why it's applicable to everybody who's not a blood Jew. And actually, it should be a blood Israeli, not a Jew. You shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish anything from it. Like maybe telling people that they shouldn't judge because, you know, we're all sinners. What does that have to do with anything? Sounds like Greg Allman saying, please don't confront me with my sins. I'm aware of them. That's what Christianity has taught people. Let's don't be sin conscious. Let's be happy conscious. Okay, I guess that'll help you live a better life. I'm not real sure. When I was happy conscious, I was doing all kinds of things that I know wasn't righteous. Guess what? I bet you were too. You shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish anything from it. That you may guard at the commandments of YEHOVAH Elohim, which I command you. So now he brought it through and brought it finally down to what the bottom line was. Right? But there's more. I want you to see something here that's really, 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 really beautiful. That you may guard the commandments of YEHOVAH Elohim, which I command you. So the thing that he's been talking about all along is the Torah, the commandments. Listen. Your eyes have seen what YEHOVAH did because of Baal, or Lord Peor. For all the men that followed Baal, Lord Peor, YEHOVAH Elohim has destroyed them from amongst you. Okay? He wasn't pleased with God Peor. But you that did cleave, so not all did, but those that did, this is him looking again. But you that did cleave unto YEHOVAH Elohim are alive, every one of you this day. So how do we know the commandments are life? Because we have historical proof that the ones who died and were destroyed and the ones who died that were righteous lived completely different lives, and they died and had different ends. I always used to wonder, and it's now becoming very clear, why was it that all of the early ones, why was it that the stories told of Noah, that Noah peacefully died? Why don't they have nasty convulsions in a hospital room with a vein busting in their brain, and they had to lay there in torment in a hospital room for 2 months before they finally croaked? Why did they pull their feet up? And it's almost like a pleasing thing. It's like they went home, they laid up and put their thumb in their mouth like they did when they came out of the womb, and they just went away, and all of a sudden their spirit was no longer there. Wow. I don't know about you, but if I had to qualify life on this earth, I think that to me is more symbolic of what life is than the rest of the junk you can throw out there. There's a reason why he did that. It's because those people were righteous. You can't live and be unrighteous. You can't exist. You can walk the face of the earth, but if that's only because you're a carnal person and all you can look at is what's happening right here on this earth and not what's going to happen after this. That's why we hear a statement made, and he was looking, Abraham was accounted righteous. He was looking for a city whose builder and maker was Elohim. He wasn't looking for what he could get on this earth. He was looking, how do I get from here to there? And that's what we're supposed, that is your purpose, friend. At least one of them. You have many, but. So let's see here. For all the men that followed Baal Peor, YEHOVAH Elohim has destroyed them from among you. But you that did cleave, you see how he's making a separation? Unfortunately, not everybody is equal in Elohim's eyes. I know it sounds good. I know it sometimes might make you feel good. But it ain't the truth. Elohim judges righteously even if we choose to believe the Christian nonsense. Elohim looks at the things that are going on, the transgenderism, the killing of babies, and all of this other nonsense, and half of America knows it's ludicrous and it's demonic, and the other half isn't sure. I don't know about y'all, that's batting 50-50 that we could cut if Elohim decided to throw a little fire and brimstone on the earth, we'd at least reduce America to about half. Sure, it's probably not much better anywhere else. But you that did cleave unto YEHOVAH Elohim are alive, every one of you this day. Behold, I have taught you commandment and judgments, even as YEHOVAH Elohim commanded me, that you should do so in the land whither you go to possess it. So the path is here's the path. Now you have to walk it. You are righteous. Please hear me. It's the greatest story. I've been happy and giddy all since. It's just crazy how much he trims away the lies that I've been told my whole life. If you walk in the path of the Torah, of the commandments, and of the judgments that Elohim gave to us, if you walk in that path, he sees you as righteous. If you do not, you are not righteous. I don't care who's told you that you can take a bath in the blood and be righteous. That's shared righteousness, folks. I did good so I can die so my children are good also. Do you really believe that nonsense? I mean, you may, and if you do, I'm really not trying to be offensive. But it is quite ludicrous. Guard therefore, verse 6, guard therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding, both of which are spirits of Elohim. So this is Elohim. If you do them, this is the spirit of Elohim working in you, not you. Wisdom and understanding, two of the main, most potent, although they're all potent, spirits of Elohim are wisdom and understanding. And the only way you prove the wisdom and the understanding that you glorify yourself to have is by how you look at his word. Because I tell you, if it tells you to break Shabbat, or if it tells you uncleanness doesn't matter, or if it tells you go ahead and have a pig sandwich with your friends, then it's a lying spirit. Because his spirit will never deviate from the path, the straight path. You know, the one that leads you to the tree of the garden of life, which is how you're walked and viewed by Elohim. That is the path. If you get off of it, y'all can't see you. You won't get in to life. You won't live eternally. That's why Moshe said that about living and it being life. Because it's going to give you life, has nothing to do with this world. All of this way back there, a long time before there was a New Testament or a book of Revelations, folks, they were talking about the end time, and we were lied to, once again, by the New Testament, that never existed before. Now we're going to give you a whole handful of prophecies written by who knows who, and they're going to tell you what it's all about. And we go, okay, well, let's throw the Old Testament away, because I can't do all them commands anyway. Guard therefore to do them. For this is your wisdom, your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all of these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and an understanding people. So get the concept here. We're told on one side that if you keep his commandments, then he will bestow, give his spirit of wisdom and understanding to you, and because you possess it, the rest of the world sees it. Guess what the rest of the world sees now? Stupidity. A bunch of people that say that they believe the Bible and then they break all 10 of the commandments that they're supposed to be living by. And they see that. I know many pagans that I've sat with and smoked pot with have told me that how they view Christianity, and it's always the same. You're a bunch of liars and a bunch of hypocrites. None of you believe the Bible. Now, I'm not fussing at anyone. They were talking to me. Just so you know, at the time, they were telling me I was those things. You know what? They were right. It's those kind of scathing reports that came from pagans that made me push the word's limit, because there's got to be more, because I can't argue with this guy. I got a church full of hypocrites. Everybody knows everybody else is a hypocrite. Everybody acts like everybody's okay. We got Jesus, brother. I often wondered how much I could grow and bless my ministry if I just put me one of them little plastic shower booths outside and run some red colored water in there and put it all over the internet. Come get your bloodbath. $5,000 a piece. Got the flow going on over here. Is anybody alive? Are you awake today? Folks, there's nothing that's more important in our life than this message that we're supposed to be sharing with those who don't know it. I'm not your enemy. I'm not against you. I've been you and still am. Guard therefore to do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all of these statutes. Now, if we say that we don't have to keep the commandments, then how will the world hear from us all of these statutes and commandments? Instead, you know what they'll hear? That you don't have to do those things because somebody died a sacrifice for you that YEHOVAH would have never commanded, nor would he have ever accepted it. I'm sorrowful. I know that that's big words to people who are really dyed-in-the-wool Christians, and if you're closed-minded, you're never going to change, so why even listen? Because they ain't going to do nothing but make you mad. I'm not going to pull back from the truth that Elohim has set me here, and what he speaks to me, I'm not going to pull back from that just because a bunch of people want to call themselves one thing and be something else. We're not perfect. I fail every single day, but that isn't the point. The point is the truth is the truth. And just like I had to accept from those non-Christians that all Christians were hypocrites, and I was one of them, I didn't like it. My flesh might have wanted to reach up and slap him on the side of the head and tell him, how dare you talk to me like that, you self-righteous pagan? Come on, folks. He's trying to show us that there's a path that we don't know about. There's a reason why Jeremiah told us that only the astute people who are righteous will care enough to go dig up the old paths. He said that right there. I taught y'all that in the book of Jeremiah. So guard therefore to do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear at all of these statutes. And I want to stop right there. I want to make a little statement. Maybe this will be offensive to all of you red-blooded Americans out there who think that pride is good, you know. Pride is a horrible abomination. If you have it in it, you better get away from it because it's going to bring destruction in your life. America is prideful. There is no other response for America but to be destroyed. However, and at what extent he does that is his business. But I can guarantee you, according to his word, it's coming. Now, I had to sit and listen to 2 hours for the president of Russia, who is one of the most hated people in the United States of America, and he spoke more scripture to me in 2 hours than everybody I've known my whole life. You ought to be ashamed of yourself that you treat people who are wicked, abominable people to Elohim as if they're okay. Maybe you ought to love them enough to tell them the truth. I didn't say be mean. I didn't say be rude. So can we then afford, for our own salvation, can we then afford to not? And I think if you're listening today, you probably should come to the point by the time we get to the end that it might not be okay with him, just even though I think it is. You know, I think it's all right if people flow. You know. And now, of course, that ludicrous lie is getting out there. The comedy world's getting a hold of it, and it's really funny. I didn't even have to say it. They said it for me. So it will be our wisdom and our understanding in the sight of the nations which shall hear these statutes. What is America telling them of what Yah says? They tell you that none of this is true. How can you be righteous and tell everyone that the truth is a lie? Woe unto you, you wicked and abominable people. That's what Yah says about it. Oh, well, it's just a small thing, brother. You know, we got to coexist. Okay. If that's your choice. Not a good one, but it is a choice. So we were all people, whoever they are, whether they be blood Jews or whether they're blood Israel. Remember, there's 12 tribes. If you split Manasseh and Ephraim, there's 13 tribes. But Joseph was one. For what nation? This is what the people are supposed to say when they see Elohim. And I got it because I watched him and I said, that's what I'm talking about. When Putin says, look, we're not idiots, we're not morons over here in Russia. We know that all of this is not right, and we ain't going to allow it in our country. They're more righteous than we are, folks. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Listen to 5 Ukrainian soldiers that left the Ukrainian army because we're being lied to about what they're doing with the wholesale pawning of our wealth. And they said they could not stand the thought of walking outside and their children seeing two men kissing and it be okay. They left and went back to Russia. Sounds to me like somebody who has a conscience about such things. And what nation is there so great that has commandments and judgment? Listen, because he reiterates the point here, but he puts in the piece that really makes it solid. In other words, what he's about to tell you is, dear friend, that this is the only path. You want to know the purpose of you? Shalom told us in the book of Ecclesiasticus, last book, second to the last verse. Just find Ecclesiasticus and go to the last page and read the next to the last verse. The sole duty of humans walking the earth are to keep Yah's commandments. That's the sole purpose. He didn't put you down here so you could be a pagan and pierce yourself and go do drugs, or whore yourself around, or kill babies. Contrary to popular belief, that wasn't why he put humans here. He put us here to serve him and to keep his commandments. And we've been deficit. I wanted to give a little disclaimer. I'm sure there was somebody out there who got offended and thought that I was saying you as a human are defective. Well, I'm not speaking physically, and neither was the scripture. When it says that all of those who do not keep the Torah are deficit, they're talking spiritual, and they're talking about being off of their path, which we all have, which is what? To keep his commandments. So if you want to know the real truth, brothers and sisters, we can judge everything we do, as I've often said to people, but not everybody's listening very good. We have to learn how to go to the store. Call Goggles for You. They have really good sales on them. Get you a set of goggles that are Torah filters. And everything you read, whether it's in the New Testament or whether it's in the Old Testament or whether it's on the internet or whether it's on this website, everything that you read, you should never take those glasses off, except when you're sleeping. Because they're the filter by which you bring right thinking and Elohim's wisdom into your life, which is the filter of the Torah. If it's contrary to the Torah, it's wrong. I don't care who you are. Now, you can go and continue to live that way. Even Elohim lets that happen. But just because he lets you continue on, he just lets you continue on it. So when the time for you, when your opportunities are up and Elohim calls your number, you had a chance. Preacher told you that. You laughed at him, scoffed him. I've had all of those many times. But what nation is there so great who has Elohim so nigh? So surely this great nation, in verse 6, surely this great nation is wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great who has Elohim so nigh unto them? So then I want you to see here that there is a closeness that comes. Can I sum this up in a verse that Elohim gave to us? He resists the proud and gives power to the humble. What does he give us power to do, folks? He gives us power to voice his truth in light and even in adversity to darkness. And this tells you that. I'm going to show you something that should, hopefully you will get it, because it's really profound. It took me several days just to swallow this. Look at this. And what nation is there so great that has commandments and judgments so righteous? So we find out that Elohim's judgments and statutes are righteousness. Okay? You want to know what does it mean to be righteous? It means to walk his judgments and commandments and nothing else. You don't need to add anything. If he'd have needed those words in there, he'd have put them in there, and you can't take them out because he didn't want them out because he put them in there. Okay, so if you want to know inside of yourself and have complete consciousness of your state on this earth and know it's not being self-righteous, to know what his word says and realize and ask yourself, and then look honestly at yourself. No respect of person. I don't get to look less at me because, well, you're worse than I am. We love that in America. Well, I'm not as bad as all of them. You know, us Pentecostals was better than all them Baptists. At least we spoke in tongues. Anybody hearing me for real? I ain't about playing games, folks. This is real. This is why life doesn't have the value that it's supposed to have. Because we're not living his life. For what nation is there so great who has Elohim so nigh unto them? That's a side effect of walking his path, is then also his closeness. It also is a side effect of him looking at you, which is how he becomes close and why he wants to become close, because he has looked at you and seen you righteous. What did he do? He looked, he saw Noah righteous, and what did he do? He drew near to him. Abraham the same way. A Bedouin out in the middle of a desert in Ur of Chaldee, the son of a pagan priest. And yet he can hear the voice of Elohim. Why? Because it doesn't have anything to do with any of those other things I've said. Don't matter if you're an American, a Ukrainian, a Russian, it doesn't matter if you're a Jew or a blood Israeli or not. What matters is that you walk his straight path. And folk, I've been around a bunch of Jews and Israeli supposedly people, and they're the worst about sending people to hell, that you can't be one of us because we don't like you. And there is no need for defense. You don't need to be offended by that. You simply have to have the knowledge inside of you that you're a liar and Elohim hasn't said those words. And what do I need your approval for? Show me your name in the Bible. Now, if it's someone who's speaking the word in truth, their name is in the Bible, in that they're going to be speaking the truth. Their word, their character is in the word. And what nation is there so great that has commandments and judgments so righteous as all of this Torah? You know what he's doing, right? He's bringing you a point. He's making a point. He's bringing you to a platitude so that he can take you to the next platitude. So the Torah is then the path of righteousness. Walk outside of the Torah, diminish the Torah, and you don't have, we always got this pictures, and I certainly did, man, that it had to do with corrupting the King James Version Bible. Okay? And it doesn't have anything. It's like teshuvah. You don't need to say you're sorry to Elohim 10,000 times. You will show him that you're truly teshuvahing by when you do fail, because you're going to. It's known. We all know it. Every human is going to fail. Right? There wasn't even one who lived a sinless life, although we were told there was. Wow. So it's up to me then to walk this path. And when I'm on this path and Elohim looks at my life, he says, I see me in you. And what commandments and judgments are so righteous as all of this Torah, which I set before you this day. Now, here's where we get to the next piece. And I really hope that you will see the huge. This is like a nuclear bomb, this next verse, folks. Only pay attention to yourself and guard your soul diligently, lest you forget the thing which your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart. Wow. All the days of your life. But teach them your sons and your sons' sons. Wow. That's kind of huge there, guys. It's kind of huge. So could we leave today and go, by golly, I don't need any greater Hebrew understanding. He just told me what righteousness is. So when they said James, the brother of Yeshua, who said James was the one, folks, it's in the Gospel of Thomas. And I know you may not have figured out the reasoning of why they take all of these books out. They take them out because they don't want you to know what they say. Every book that I have seen put back in, with the few exceptions, there are some that aren't, and they're easy to discern if you're wearing your Torah glasses. When they start telling you these things happened, folks, and it's not anywhere else in the Bible, you might start questioning. See, that's how I know I can stay safe, and he's not going to send a bolt of lightning through this house. That's how I know that. It's because I don't try to change his words. I read enough scripture with the people that follow me. Most churches won't read how much scripture I read in a week, in a year. But they do like to talk about fishing trips and golfing. It's all spiritual, brother. Yes, sir, it is. I truly believe that. If Elohim could put a silver coin in the mouth of a fish, by golly, I believe he could put a world record bass on the end of my hook. So, you want to know what righteousness is? Righteousness is doing Yah's commandments. And if you're not doing his commandments, and that's not a few, that's not some. I'm not talking about failing along the way. Well, last year we had a glitch, and I listened to a scholar who has all kinds of degrees, and before the thing was over with, I recognized that I had made a mistake. That wasn't a judgment error in anybody else. That was me. You know what I did? Can I be honest with you, since I'm always trying to be honest with people? This is what I did. I listened to these scholars who have these degrees, and they've been in Israel, and they run tours, and they're making millions of dollars off of people who don't even know what the Torah is. Okay, it's a really good business, just like Christianity is. And so here's what I did. I took it off, and I said, well, wow, these guys are a lot smarter than I am. And then I sat in the presence of the very person talking about that, and he could not even tell me what the Bible meant to do with Passover. The very thing that I had failed Elohim in. You think that's accidental? Elohim was speaking through a scholar that was teaching false doctrine to me that's wrong. Thank you, Father. I didn't have much intent of ending up in North Carolina to get a truth about one of my failings, but it was there. Wow. Takes my breath away sometimes, friends. Flip over 2 chapters and go to chapter 6. So we now have established the commandments, our righteousness, the Torah. Okay? And our job and our place on this earth is to show Elohim to the world. If that be 5 people in your circle, that's 5 people. If it's just your children, wouldn't that be enough? So let's see, because there's more that goes with this. Chapter 6, verse 1. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments. So he just did it. I mean, there's always so many little lessons in here. These are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments. What he just told you is that when you hear the word commandment, it's not just talking about one thing. It's talking about the statutes he gave as well as the judgments that he made. He said it is not good for Adam and Steve to be together. It's not good. Didn't say that man wasn't capable of doing such things. He also didn't say that humans aren't afflicted by spirit forces that we don't understand and can't control that are functioning every single day. I'm sorrowful if I make you have to put your head down, you know, if I have been known to bring a lot when I come. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, the judgments, which YEHOVAH Elohim commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land whither you go to possess it. Okay? That you might fear YEHOVAH Eloheka, to guard all of his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your son's son. So every human man on this earth, and I know that this also is not very pleasing to the feminine mindset that exists in this world, but every human man on this earth is given a commandment to teach not only their sons, but their sons and their grandsons and their great-grandsons, and if they live long enough, to their great-great-grandsons. Every human male. I was pondering all of the people who were in my church who heard the truth. For 5 years I taught Shabbat and the beginning of the teaching of the Torah, and my mind went there, and I began to think about all of the men that I know that were in that congregation who turned their back against Elohim, and how many of the men of each one of those families is dead. Wow. So is this whole man thing and how Yah views things, is that real? Might be a coincidence. Sure, you can find at least 5 or 9 scholars who would tell you that's ludicrous. Pretty obvious what the scriptures say, though. So, both the statutes and the judgments are what make up his commandments, and we're supposed to teach them. We found that out in verse 1. Verse 2, that you might fear YEHOVAH Eloheka, to guard all of his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your son's sons, all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. So in other words, that you would be barak, that you would be blessed, that YEHOVAH gave you longer to tell more of your family the truth. But see, that's not Western understanding of what was just said there. Hear therefore, O Yisrael, and guard to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as YEHOVAH Elohai of your fathers has promised you, in the land that flows with milk and honey. When did these people, when were they told that they would inherit a land that flows with milk and honey? Where did that come into play? There's 12 tribes of Israel now and several million people. At least 600,000 they estimate, maybe 1 million in the desert. How did all of those people that are all from the same 12 tribes, how did all those people become the covenant that he made with Abraham? He's still not thrown Abraham's covenant in the trash. He also hasn't thrown the covenant he made with Noah about not flooding the earth again. That still stands and will stand until the end. Hear therefore, O Yisrael, and guard to do it, that you may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as YEHOVAH Elohai of your fathers has promised you, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Yisrael, YEHOVAH Eloheinu, YEHOVAH is Echad. And you shall love at YEHOVAH Eloheka with all of your heart, you mean it, and with all of your soul, and with all of your might. Is there any of us, do you honestly believe that there is any of us who can say that we're doing that? And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. That's both in your mind to remember them linguistically, but it really has a greater connotation. In other words, this is supposed to be your soul. This is supposed to be what drives you. I will not shame my father. And it's starting for me to become painfully obvious that that's a large task. But with all large tasks comes large reward. See, none of this is meant for a curse to those people who recognize him and begin to obey him. And I promise you, it will change your life. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. So for any of you men out there who have been telling your family the truth and they don't want to hear it, keep saying it. Is there a time when we have to learn? Of course there is. But there's a time when we have to separate. I ain't trying to judge when that is. Everybody has to know that for themselves. I can't afford to stay around this person anymore. They keep messing me up every time I'm around. I got to go. And teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. So every minute of every day, this is supposed to be the focus of your life, and that's supposed to be coming from inside of you. You're not doing it because you got up today and said, well, what would God say? Well, God would say, go be kind. Instead of putting your glasses on in the morning that expose, once again, what the real truth is. It's a totally different picture than what we've been taught our whole lives. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be frontlet between your eyes. The Jews took that to the extreme of believing it was a physical thing. I personally am not really convinced that that's at all true. I don't think Tefillin make an unjust person just. I mean, any more than taking a blood bath makes me righteous. It's the same nonsense, folks. It's very obvious for me to tell from this that Elohim is telling us we need to clean our minds and clean our actions up, and we need to make sure we stay that way. That's how we bind it. It's constantly, I look at my hands and I go, they will do no unrighteousness to Elohim. Have to look in the mirror. You will do no unrighteousness to Elohim. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the post of your house and on your gates. And it shall be when YEHOVAH Eloheka shall have brought you into the land which he swore unto your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov, to give you great and goodly cities, which you built not, and houses full of all good things, which you filled not, and wells dug, which you dug not, and vineyards and olive trees, which you planted not, when you shall have eaten and be full. Then beware, lest you forget at YEHOVAH, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage. You shall fear YEHOVAH Eloheka, and serve him, and shall swear by his name. Wow. Did I just read a commandment that we are to swear by his name? Did I just read that? Is that what your Bible says? Wow. You shall not go after other Elohim of the Elohim of the people. See, the Elohim they're going after, folks, never existed in any of the beginning writings. And that's why I showed you what the Old Testament says about a Savior versus what the New Testament. I did that about 4-6 months ago. Elohim is King, Elohim is Savior, Elohim is King, Elohim is Savior, Elohim is Redeemer, Elohim is Savior, and you get to the book of Matthew, and everything that was Elohim is now Jesus, the God-man. A little bit more than coincidental. You shall fear YEHOVAH, verse 13, and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after other Elohim of the Elohim of the people which are round about you. For YEHOVAH Eloheka is a jealous El amongst you. Lest the anger of YEHOVAH Eloheka be kindled against you and destroy you from off the face of the earth. You shall not tempt YEHOVAH Elohim as you tempted him in Makkah. You shall diligently guard these commands of YEHOVAH Elohim and his testimonies and his statutes, which he has commanded you, and you shall do that which is right and good in the sight. Back to, remember what I showed you in the first two examples? That is good in the sight of YEHOVAH, that it may be well with you, because if Elohim looks and you ain't there in his sight, folks, it ain't going to be good for you. All of it totally meshes with each other. The thought, the heart, the context, the principle he's trying to teach us. And you shall do that which is right and good, not in your own eyes, not in America's eyes, not in this group or this religion or that religion's eyes, but what is good in Elohim's eyes. And if you're in anybody else's eyes, can I tell you, you're not walking his path. Not to put anybody there. It's not my fault if you're not doing it. It's your fault. And you shall do that which is right. Doesn't that sound like, in a nutshell, in one little word, he summed up the whole? And you shall do what is right. I heard that Professor Eisenman, who I referred to earlier, as far as I'm concerned, one of the top Dead Sea Scrolls scholars that was on that project, the whole thing. He's the reason why they even got printed. And he made a beautiful statement. Well, I believe that we're supposed to do what's right. That's the bottom line. If you're not doing that, folks, it doesn't matter what you line up with. If somebody says, I read in the New Testament that if you don't confess Jesus, you're of a devil, then to them, I'm a devil. I'm not worried. I'm not trying to walk to them. I'm trying to walk that's right in the sight of him, and in the sight of Elohim, folks. He says his statutes and his judgments are his commandments, and these things are what make you righteous. Wow. Thank you, Father. That felt really good to be able to say those words and have such peace about it. I'm not looking for the path anymore, friend. I know what the path is. I have every now and then took a sidestep, and I've certainly looked in the mirror at myself. Most days I'm glad I did, but some days I'm sad I did. I guess it just depends on how weak we are, huh? So, you shall fear Elohim and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after other Elohim of the Elohim of the people, which are round about you. That certainly fits for us. For YEHOVAH Eloheka is a jealous El among you, lest the anger of YEHOVAH Eloheka be kindled against you, and he destroy you. You shall not tempt at YEHOVAH Elohim as you tempted him in Makkah. You shall diligently guard the commands of YEHOVAH Elohim and his testimonies and his statutes, which he has commanded you, and you shall do that which is right and good in the sight of YEHOVAH, that it may be well with you. So if I do what's good and right in his sight, that scripture just told me I have a covenant promise that things are going to go well for me. It didn't say everything would be perfect. It didn't say I got everything. It ain't a rubber genie. Elohim is not a rubber genie and get your wish. He's, if you're willing to obey me and bow yourself to me in humility and do what I tell you, I promise you I'm right. You know what we would call a man like that today? Arrogant. To cast out at all of the enemies from before you, those are also spiritual enemies that exist in front of us, they all over this country. As YEHOVAH has spoken, and when your son asks you in time to come, saying, what mean the testimonies and the statutes and the judgments which YEHOVAH Eloheinu has commanded you, then you shall say unto your son, we were Pharaoh's bondmen in Mitzrayim, and YEHOVAH brought us out of Mitzrayim with a mighty hand. And YEHOVAH showed signs and wonders great and sore upon Mitzrayim, upon Pharaoh, and upon all the household before our eyes. And he brought us out from thence, that he might bring us in. So Yah is always in this perpetual state of bringing us out to bring us in. That's why I said, even if none of it were real, that's a metaphoric principle that's 100% true every time. Yah is always bringing us out of the wrong and trying to bring us into, guess what? His sight. See, we have this picture, if you understand what I've been saying, we have this picture then that Yah always wants us. And the truth is Elohim is waiting for us to come back into his sight. Wasn't he that changed or deviated? It's you. And I'm not calling you a sinner. You should call yourself that. And YEHOVAH commanded us to do all of these statutes, to fear YEHOVAH Eloheinu for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is this day. So here's the thing. That bad God that we did away with because he's mean, if you read the scriptures, he absolutely boggles my mind. How kind. And then I look at my life and all the things that I've done according to his word that shame him. And instead of killing me, which is what I deserve, you know what he did? He began to show me the truth. Wow, this is a bad God? This is one we can't trust? This is one who has no honor? How deprived are we that we would even believe that? Actually quite deprived of the truth. And it shall be, this next verse is why I read this whole chapter to you, dear friend. I promise you this is so overwhelming, it's not even funny. And it shall be our righteousness. I just gave you life's purpose. Keep my commands and be righteous, and if you do, I'll watch over you. But when you get out of my eyesight, I don't watch over you anymore. And because your eyes turn aside to things that aren't profitable, doesn't mean Elohim's eyes do. You go looking after a different woman or more money, or you want to do something over here that's not right. Elohim doesn't look over there just because you did. He always is always in a straight line in front of you. Yes, dear one, from modern psychology, Elohim is a strict board. And I know Christianity loves to tell you that everything ain't black and white, and lots of things are gray. Well, so I understand there's 50 shades of it. But look at that. Moshe just told us, verbatim in our face, that the thing that will make you righteous in Elohim's eyes is doing his commandments. Wow. Now, can I please appeal to your better judgment? And maybe this is for somebody who I don't even know that'll come across this. But I have to ask the question. Is there any way in your mind that you can correlate Christianity and that? Christianity tells me that if I accept Jesus, that he washes me with his blood, and his blood cleanses me from all unrighteous, and I have now become righteous through him. Can I ask you a question? Do you see some logical, reasonable, contextual way that this can be true and that can be true? Critically thinking. I desire critical thinking. And I don't care if some of the scholars that are watching watch it or not. How do you get from Moshe via the mouth of Elohim telling all people that exist on the earth, whether they're strangers or whether they're Israel, that your path to righteousness and the path to being in the line of Elohim's sight is to do his Torah and keep his commandments is what makes you righteous. Two, there was a guy 2,000 years ago that died, that Rome hung on a stake, and his blood did all of these supernatural things, and he was an amazing shaman. He could work all kinds of witchcraft. And because he did that, I can now bathe in that somehow metaphorically, spiritually, and eat his body, and I will be made righteous. I hate to tell you, but if you heard that and that's not absurd to you, I'm sorrowful for you. Maybe you'll find the truth before you get to the end of your life. But I'm just telling you right now, I don't know how anybody, after hearing what I've shared this morning, could believe that nonsense. It's pretty obvious to me that this Elohim and that Elohim ain't the same. Hello. Am I here by myself? Maybe so. We'll push on. We're just about there, friends. So then our righteousness is our obedience to the Torah. Go to the book 24, chapter 24. All right. Chapter 24, verse 11. If you need to read into context, there's lots of good context in here. What I'm speaking is going to be in context, but if you're not sure, because I don't have time to read all the verses. I'd have read 200 more verses, what I'd like to have done. Verse 11, you shall stand abroad, and to whom you shall lend, to whom you lend shall bring out at the pledge abroad unto you. And if the man be poor, you shall not sleep with his pledge. In any case, you shall deliver him at the pledge again when the sun goes down, that he may sleep in his own raiment and bless you. And it shall be righteousness unto you before. Could you not get from before to in the sight of Elohim? And while that's a simple little principle, I got to tell you, it's really huge when you begin to do this, when you begin to look at this. Okay, somebody had a need. I helped that somebody with the need, and they gave me something in exchange for that money. They needed some money. I gave him $5, and the guy gave me his coat. He said, man, I'll pay you back, but I don't have anything else. Can I give you this? Elohim is telling me I'm supposed to take that, and I'm supposed to give it back to him that night, whether he pays me or not. Does that sound like the beginning principles of love your neighbor as yourself? If you had no coat and had no money, Would you hope that everybody would leave you laying on the street? I venture to say probably not many people would. Wow. So that then, my charity to people in need, just so you know, this is all over Israel. They absolutely know this principle. One of the other definitions of the word righteous is charity. Help people. Are you not so blessed that you can't give up something? And if somebody has to tell you that you should, probably don't need to waste your time. This stuff is supposed to live in us. Chapter 24, I read verse 11. When you lend to your brother, and if the man be poor, you shall not sleep with this pledge. In any case, you shall deliver him the pledge again when the sun goes down, that he may sleep in his own raiment, and bless you. And it shall be righteousness unto you before or in the sight of YEHOVAH Eloheka. When this is all said and done, I hope you're redundantly tired of me saying in the sight of Elohim. But there's a revelation here he's trying to get us to see, folks. Until we have consciousness of our sin, we're never going to stop it. And the only way you can stop it is to look at him. If you change your focus to worrying about what Yah says instead of what society says, or America says, or your church says, or your religious belief says, and you started worrying about what Yah says, I promise you, you won't be doing the things that you're doing now. And I don't know everybody. I'm not speaking to any one individual person. Every person, if there were 10,000 people, which there probably won't be, that'll come watch this. Why? Because there ain't 10,000 people that want to hear this. Pretty crazy. Now, I'm finishing before I break because I guess I did right about what I thought I would do. I want to start out. I'm going to read the first chapter. This thing, my comment note here, go to, if you would, to the book of YEHOVAH if you have the Sefer. Amazing, amazing, amazing guy. This is so crazy. Marianne told me the other day, she said, well, I want to go through the book of Jasher. You know, we've been through YEHOVAH twice already. And it was said rightly. It's not always intentional, but things just, and this is going to be one, and I think it's the perfect closing note to the end of this teaching. If I had never done this in my life and I died, I would have failed. I'm so free that Elohim is like, it's all right, man, just keep on walking. He tells me that every day. Just keep on, come closer. Come closer. You see something you're failing at, fix it and come closer. That's supposed to be our everyday walk, judging everything through the eyes of the Torah. I still fail. When I get perfect, I'll quit failing. But until then, I got to fight that because I will become better. You hear a lot of that in Christianity. Well, we want to become our best person. Well, of course, I think that's a wonderful human trait, right? All of us should be wanting every day to try to be the best person. But at some point, we have to ask ourselves, what is better? Am I supposed to be a more corrupt Christian? Or am I supposed to be a more righteous follower of Yah? You really are. I set before you today the blessing or the curse. It's always going to work out that way. YEHOVAH. And it came to pass in the first year of the Shemot of the exodus of the children of Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, in the 3rd month on the 16th day of the month, that Elohim spoke to Moshe, saying, come up to me on the mount, and I will give you 2 sapphire stones of the Torah and of the commandments, which I have written, that you may teach them. So you see, from over here in Deuteronomy to here in YEHOVAH, the verbiage is identical. What's the purpose? To teach people his words. And I spoke to Moshe, saying, come up to me on the mount, and I will give you 2 sapphires of stones of the Torah, the instructions, and of the commandments. So I'm going to give you the instructions, and I'm going to give you the commandments. So the commandments are the 10 words. The Torah totally is supposed to be the instructions of how to do those things. That's what Torah means. Instructions in how to do right. So when I say to you, are you a Torah believer? I'm asking you, do you read and follow the instructions of how to be right? If you knew that and you answer me and you say, well, I don't know what the instructions and how to do right are, can I give you a quick synopsis of that? I'm guessing you probably aren't. Because I always need to know things before I can become them. I can't go to Dallas if I don't know I want to go to Dallas or Austin. Come up to me on the mount, and I will give them to you. Verse 3, and Moshe went up into the mount of Elohim, and the glory of YEHOVAH abode on Mount Sinai, and a cloud overshadowed it 6 days. And he called to Moshe on the 7th day out of the midst of the cloud, and the appearance of the glory of YEHOVAH was like a flaming fire on the top of the mount. And Moshe was on the mount 40 days and 40 nights, and Elohim taught him, this is interesting, taught him the earlier and the later history of the division of all of the days of the Torah. Do you know what that just said to us? Do you know that on that mountain in those 40 days, Elohim showed him the beginning of the Torah and showed him the end of time and the Torah? Is what he just said. And he said, incline your heart to every word which I shall speak to you on this mount. I hope those words go in your ears as if Elohim is speaking them to you. Incline his words to your ears. Every word which I shall speak to you on this mount, and write them in a sefer, a book, in order that their generations may see how I have not forsaken them for all of the evil which they have wrought in transgressing the covenant, which I established between me and you for this generation, for their generations this day on Mount Sinai, for their generations. In other words, for all generations. And thus it will come to pass when all of these things come upon them, that they will recognize that I am more righteous than they in all of their judgments and in all of their actions, and they will recognize that I have been truly with them. When you recognize the state of depravity. Because until then, you will never teshuvah or turn and walk towards him. How do we walk towards Elohim? I will answer that question for you. If we have been not keeping all of his commands, we begin to keep his commands. Yes, it's a process. Does it happen overnight? No, it doesn't. Write for yourself all of these words which I declare unto you this day, for I know their rebellion and their stiff neck, before I bring them into the land of which I swore to their fathers, to Avram, to Yitzhak, to Yaakov, saying, unto your seed will I give a land flowing with milk and honey. That's the second time today we've heard that, isn't it? And they will eat and be satisfied, and they will turn to strange Elohim. We just heard that, didn't we? To Elohim, which cannot deliver them from anything of their tribulation, and this witness shall be heard for a witness against them. The fact that their Elohim can't help them will be a witness against them. And many will perish, and they will be taken captive, and will fall into the hands of the enemy, because they have forsaken my ordinances, my commandments, the feasts of my covenant, and my Shabbatoth. I want to ask you a simple little question there, dear friend. Is not what America done and what Christianity worldwide does exactly what he just told us would happen? to the T. And notice he didn't even get into the social issues. These are all perceived religious issues. And my holy place, which I have sanctified for myself in their midst, my tabernacle and my sanctuary, which I have sanctified for myself in the midst of the land. I'm going to say something that's a little strange. But if there is to be a final temple, the Jews may build a fake one out of marble that's big and great. But if you want to know the honest to goodness truth, the temple that's going to be built at the end, where a false god will stand inside of it and declare that they are Elohim, is they are going to find the tabernacle of the wilderness, which was, Yah never intended for them to have any other tabernacle. And it was hidden by Jeremiah. And the little wood box with the sapphire stones, they're probably with it. And all the rest of that was created in Babylon. Doing a research on the name YEHOVAH, who is what over there in the 5 books that Moses didn't write. And YEHOVAH is the one who was commissioned to build the ark that's in there. Having a name YEHOVAH is not a good thing. And my tabernacle and my sanctuary, which I have sanctified for myself in the midst of the land, that I should set my name upon it, and that it should dwell there. And they will make to themselves high places and Asherah poles and graven images, and they will worship each his own graven image. And I thought that was quite strange. Well, that's not what it means to. And when you say that's not what it means to me, that means this is your thing. And there it pops up right there. They will wear their graven things. Not his. So as to go astray. Here we go, another one. He's just reading our history, our real world. This is better than YouTube. And they will worship each his own graven image so as to go astray. They will sacrifice their children to devils and to all the works of the errors of their heart. So if you look at that, what that actually says, that they will sacrifice. Oh, you didn't hear me yet. You have to look back at that. That they will sacrifice their children to devils, comma, pause, and to all the works of the error. Did he just say to us that you will not only sacrifice your children to devils, but you will also sacrifice your children to the works? Let's see what it says. The works of the error of your heart. Well, that's not what it means to me. I thought any day, if I worshiped him, you know, brother, we should worship God every day. Well, I'll be. Reckon so? So then that must trump that there's a day. But they're going to sacrifice their children to the errors. That means your wrong belief system that's inside of your mind. And them that I may witness against them, but they will not hear, and will slay the witnesses also, and they will persecute those who seek the Torah. And they will abrogate and change everything so as to work evil. Once again, did you see it? Before my YEHOVAH's eyes. And I will hide my face from them. And I will deliver them into the hand of the other nations by captivity and for prey and for devouring, and I will remove them from the midst of the land, and I will scatter them amongst the other nations. He's already done that, folks, and the stage is being set for the next round. This is the ring in the pond that I keep talking about. A word that Elohim says that is forever, folks. We only have a decision. Do we go by the thoughts in our mind, or do we go by what he says? And they will forget all of my Torah, all of my commandments, all my judgments, and will go astray as to the new moons and Shabbatoth and feast and jubilees and ordinances. You know why they forgot the ordinances? This is just one. I can verify every one of these in Christianity. The Apostle Paul is the one who said that Jesus did away with all of the ordinances. Dig it. What's the word? Come on, guys. Come on, let me hear it. What is the word? He nailed them to the cross, the ordinances of God. He said that would happen thousands of years before it happened. And it's exactly what Christianity did. He's not talking about the Jews anymore. He's talking about the world at the end. And this is supposed to be a metaphoric picture for us to see where we're at so we can have an idea about where we're going. It's true. It happened once already. Actually many times, but what I'm saying is this word has been proven to be true once already, at least. Actually, there's many more, but you're going to find out. There's all this Torah popping up on the earth again, folks. That's not accidental. I'm just going to tell you what you might not know or believe, but it's the truth. It ain't accidental. I didn't go looking for him. And I'm sure didn't beg him to please teach me something that everybody hates. And look at what they said, though. And after this, they will turn to me from amongst the other nations with all their heart and with all their soul and with all their strength. That's what? That's looking through the Torah. That's the first command. So in other words, they will come back to my commandments, is what he just said to you. And I will gather them from amongst all the other nations. Who's doing the gathering? Did I just tell you that this Torah thing is not insignificant and it's not accidental? Yeah, Elohim is gathering his people right now, folks, in case you didn't know and you're waiting for the rapture. You might be a little disappointed. Just saying. With all their soul, with all their strength, the first commandment, and I will gather them from amongst all the other nations. If they don't worship me, come to me with all their hearts, all their strength, he's going to do what? He's going to leave you where you're at. Not good. I don't want to be where I was. I hate it more now than I ever did. But it wasn't all that fun to walk through. Anybody got an amen? And after this, they will turn to me from amongst the other nations, and with all their heart, with all their soul, with all their strength, and I will gather them from amongst the other nations, and they will seek me so that I shall be found of them. And when they seek me with all their heart, love Elohim with all your heart, all your mind, and all yourself. So what he just told you, dear friend, is until you keep the first commandment, I ain't worried about it. The minute you show me by you keeping the commandment and loving me, see, that still doesn't include perfection. Because somebody could fall down and really feel horrible about it and not want that to happen. Anybody besides me? Because I experience that several times a week. It's like, God, I can't believe I did that. Unfortunately, I'd rather get to where I have foresight. I like it a lot better than hindsight. Anybody else been there? You'd have done better if you'd have thought better. I don't know. I can't seem to find it in myself, so I don't know what it would be in you, but that's my picture of it. I will gather them from amongst all the other nations, and they will seek me so that I shall be found of them. And when they seek me with all of their heart, and with all of their soul. And I will disclose to them, listen at this, and I will disclose to them the people who seek me with all their heart and want me to see them, and they begin to keep my commandments. I don't know about you, but if you're not feeling 10 feet tall and bulletproof right now, I'm sorrowful for you. Because what he just said right there is some amazing love and comfort. He promises us He doesn't have an option to not keep those words. Of course, he also has no intentions of not keeping them. And I will disclose to them abounding peace with righteousness. Why? Because the kingdom of Elohim is in, can I give it to you? Right. I've been saying this for 35 years. Righteousness, and you get no peace until you have righteousness. He just said that. And if you have peace and you have righteousness, guess what? You got no problem. You wonder now why you can't just get over stuff, and you can't be happy when somebody does you wrong, and you like your id functioning and blowing up and acting out, and you like your bad behavior, and you like your bad attitude, and you like all them things, but you ain't going to do the things to stop those things. But you will if you begin to walk with Elohim. Wow, that's huge, bro. That makes me excited and encouraged. You mean there is a better day for us? You mean all this stuff, God don't want to squash me like an Asian beetle? And let me tell you, if you ain't in Missouri, you don't know what Asian beetles is like. They're ugly brown ladybugs that bite. Wow, that's pretty huge, isn't it? Doesn't that make you feel like you must be some kind of special? Especially for those of you that have been with me for a while, and I'll have to say it quite honestly and put up with me, because sometimes I'm a handful. But look at what it says. And I will disclose to them abounding peace with righteousness. I will disclose. Now, my mind began to ponder, what does that really mean? What does it really mean that Elohim will disclose? That's a weird way of saying that. Why didn't he just say, and I will give to you? Because I would have got that. That's Western mindset as it comes. Does anybody get that? He will disclose to you is a concrete thing of opening something that was closed or hidden to you, and he will open it if you listen to what he just said. Y'all will open to me something that maybe the people around me don't even know, and he will open that to me? Wow. That don't make me want to run from him. That makes me want to run to him. Look at how beautiful that is. And I will disclose to you great and mighty things that you know not of. And they quote that in Christianity, but they don't have a clue about what it means. They start telling you how they're going to be rich and get a new car. Look at what he says, though. And I will remove them the plan of uprightness, and I will remove them. What does that mean? Those are big words. What do they mean? And I will remove. That sounds like he will take something from one place and put it somewhere where it has not forementioned been. And I will remove them the plan of uprightness. So now we know that he's going to take the righteous and he's going to put them somewhere. Let's find out where. With all my heart, with all my soul, and they shall be for a blessing and not for a curse. What does that go back to? What is Elohim taking us back to? He said, those people who are upright, who I pluck up, I will remove them and I will put them on this side, which is blessed, and not on this side. I don't know about you. I like the sound of that. You mean this is really worth all my time? You mean it? I will disclose to them abounding peace with righteousness, and I will remove them the plan of uprightness with all my heart, with all my soul, and they shall be a blessing. Did you see that? What does it mean for Elohim to remove us with all his heart and all his soul? What does that mean? Wow, my mind can't even deal with that. And they shall be for a blessing and not for a curse. So if you're following Yah, and if your heart, and I don't know anybody, I don't know what's inside of people. But if you're following Yah, guess what? He says you're a blessing. You're not cursed. So is there a value then? I don't know about you, just from reading that, it's like, well, I don't want to be prideful, you know. I probably won't go buy the t-shirt that says I'm too blessed to be stressed. But I got to tell you, inside of me, those words right there live. I drive down the road and I just have, sometimes I spend more time crying, praying when I'm driving. I just have to think, YEHOVAH, thank you. I don't have much to give, but thank you. And I will build my sanctuary in their midst, and I will tabernacle with them. Now, is there anybody else that you've heard recently in the New Testament that's supposed to come back and tabernacle with us? It's all over the chronological Gospels. I'm kind of curious why we need to chronologize a corrupted document and won't listen to the true source of it. Does anybody see that besides me? Is it huge and profound? Look, let me finish this. I'll read it to you. It's beautiful. And I will disclose them abounding peace with righteousness, and I will remove them the plan of uprightness, and with all of my heart and with all of my soul they shall be a blessing and not a curse, and they shall be the head and not the tail. And I will build my sanctuary in their midst, and I will tabernacle with them. I will sukkot with them. Now, is this talking about some son 5,000 years later? I can't find that in there. I don't even find allusions to that in there. What I find is Elohim telling the people who will keep his commandments that they are not cursed, they are blessed, and he will come and live with them. Is that what you read? Because I think that's pretty much what that says. And I will build my sanctuary in their midst, and I will tabernacle with them, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people in truth and righteousness. Who will? And I will not forsake them, nor fail them, for I am YEHOVAH Elohim. Once again, it just gets bigger and more intense. So I could sit around and go, well, God, I know I'm worried you failed me this time. I could do that. But I have to tell you, after reading that, I kind of feel convicted when I struggle with anything. That's pretty clear, isn't it? Isn't it pretty clear that even if, and so please, there's such a fine line here, and I've talked to enough people that I know many people can't understand that fine line even when you speak, the difference between one or the other. But he's pretty clear, man, that he understands we're all going to fall and make mistakes. But he also gave us the word so that we would know how to deal with that. So hopefully this teaching will help you have a bigger understanding, because listen, if you're really sharp, you'll be able to see exactly what I've seen, which is this: that none of those people are righteous. Though a righteous man, now we can stop where we couldn't, and we can now define what is a righteous man. Can I ask you what's God's picture on being righteous? Dave, you got an answer?
The man who follows his commands.
Okay, so it's who keeps his, that makes you righteous then, right? That's not keeping Christian doctrine. That's not living like they live. That's not singing to their Elohim. That's not worshiping on their false day. It's none of, did I not need any of those things? But I did need, and I didn't have, keeping his festivals and living his Torah and keeping his feast and keeping Shabbat and And I'm supposed to do those things? And you mean that's all it takes to be righteous? You mean 45 years I lived as a Christian and I was unrighteous and was the most self-righteous, unrighteous person probably ever existed?
Me too.
Well, me and Jesus got it going on. I don't care what you think. You go eat that not eating pork, I'm going hog hunting this weekend. Hello. Some of you was in my church, you know that's exactly what I'd have said. I ain't playing. I was a good hog killer. Make some pretty good smoked hams too. But I was just as unrighteous as could be. And as far as I know, the presbytery at that time wasn't mad at me. I was a good Christian boy. Up until the point that I slipped up and made my confession that I wasn't a Christian. Waited for the lightning to come through the roof. Nope, that didn't happen. Maybe Paul was a liar. Is anybody here with me? I don't care who it is. Guys, time is running short. And whether that be the end of things, I don't have a clue where we are in time. I think we got a lot of things, as I've been showing you, and I'm going to continue to, because I am a faithful person to him. Folks, we got a lot of things going on in our world, but I can't tell you this is the end of time. But I do know that he showed Moses what the end of time looks like. I do know that he showed Enoch what the end of time looked like. And we're going to see some of those things here in the very near future. This is Moses. He's, Yah was very straight with Moses, told him exactly what the people were going to do. And we've done every one of them, as I've shown you. And so, wow, I went pretty good. It seemed like we've been here 30 minutes. I apologize, folks. It's 2.5 hours almost. Wow. Thank you, Father. All right. I'm going to stop right there. We're halfway through YEHOVAH. We're probably going to pick up there and go forward next week. Hopefully Mikey will be feeling better and we'll have some music again. And so we're going to take a wee bit of time so that we can get our bread and cup ready. Probably have to use the bathroom, and my coffee's cold, and life is wonderful. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Shalom. Well, shalom, you guys, the blessed of YEHOVAH. If we're walking in the scripture of Elohim and keeping his commands and walking in his path, it's not talking about being a perfect human, but it's talking about being a perfect in heart person. And we truly can wear that moniker, blessed of Elohim. And so I think that's a wonderful place to be, both for me and you. So we're going to pray, and we're going to partake of the cup, and then we're going to look at a little bit at the book of Joshua. So shalom to each and every one of you. Father, bless you. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for this time you've given me. Thank you for these words that I believe you've shared with me out of your scripture. You sent your word and healed us. And I bless you today. I ask you to continue to help us to have strength, that our minds might be alert, and that you might disclose to us something that we haven't seen. And I bless you and thank you. I believe you are doing that on a daily basis. Amen. Amen. Brother Dave? All right. Well, long about now is when we take advantage of our opportunity to symbolically break bread. It is symbolically a breaking of bread, but really the symbolism of that also doesn't go just towards Elohim. It goes to, because it's giving him thanks. Baruch atah, blessed are you, YEHOVAH, for giving us the cup and the bread. So it is a blessing to him. But really it is a blessing on another level, because it has to do with us and fellowship together. So for those guys who have the same spirit, Scripture teaches us that people of like precious faith of spirit, that's the New Testament, will know each other, and that's kind of a symbiotic thing that goes on sometimes. So we're going to take the bread. We're going to speak a Hebrew blessing over it. Baruch atah YEHOVAH Eloheinu Melech haolam hamotzi lakim minaretz. Blessed are you, YEHOVAH, King of the universe, who has brought forth bread from the ground. Let us partake together. We used to break bread together, and lots of long teachings about it. All right. Then we take our cup together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Let's take it together. Together speaks of unity, charity. Blessed are those who can be in unity together. There's also a blessing there. When you get a lot of blessed people in the same place, then a lot of blessed people will make a whole bunch of blessing. And it's wonderful to be around those spirits that want what Yah wants. And so, shalom again. Joshua chapter 17. There was also a lot for the tribe of Manasseh. We remember, I realize, and I've said this, so this is kind of like one of my little lawyer claims. I'm sorrowful I have two lawyer claims. For anyone who may not know me or know of this path, the scripture I read the other night about people being not any good, basically, I can't remember right off the top of my head what the word was used, but they'll malfactor. We've seen that in the past. We had found that in the Hebrew, dysfunctional kind of. I don't think that has anything to do with physically. That's totally a spirit thing. In every deficit in every area of life, there are lots of people who are better at everything than I am, but they're still deficit. So it's really deficit of the word of Yah, the truth. So that's one lawyer claim. The other one is I pledge that I will try with all of me not to make any more comments about Elvis. And other than that, I don't make no claims. So, it's all good. He's good and wonderful. He loves us. There was also a lot for the tribe of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph, to wit, for Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, the father of Gilead, because he was a man of war, therefore he had Gilead and Bashan. Y'all remember Bashan is where Og lived. And there was also a lot for the rest of the children of Manasseh by their families, for the children of Abiezer, and for the children of Helek, and for the children of Azriel, and for the children of Shechem, and for the children of Sepher, and for the children of Shemida. These were the male children of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, by their families. For Zelophehad, the son of Sepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons, but daughters. And these are the names of his daughters, Machlah and Noah, and Hoglah, and Milcah, and Tirzah. And they came near before Eleazar the priest, and before Yahusha the son of Nun, and before the princes, saying, YEHOVAH commanded Moshe to give us an inheritance amongst our brethren. Therefore, according to the commandment of YEHOVAH, he gave them an inheritance amongst the brethren of their father. And they fell 10 portions to Manasseh, besides the land of Gilead and Bashan, which were on the other side of the Jordan, because the daughters of Manasseh had an inheritance among his sons, and the rest of Manasseh's sons had the land of Gilead. And the coast of Manasseh was from Asher to Mikmethath, that lies before Shechem, and the border was along on the right hand unto the inhabitants of Ein Tupac. Now Manasseh had the land of Tapuach on the border of Manasseh, belonging to the children of Ephraim, and the coast descended unto the river Quanah, southward of the river. The cities of Ephraim are amongst the cities of Manasseh. The coast of Manasseh along also was on the north side of the river, and the outgoings of it were at the sea. Southward it was Ephraim's, and northward it was Manasseh's. And the sea is his border, and they met together in Asher on the north, and in Issachar on the east. And Manasseh had in Issachar and in Asher Beit Sha'an and her towns, in Yivleam and her towns, and the inhabitants of Dor and her towns. I saw that they found Dor archaeologically. They found that a couple of years ago, and they started unearthing it. Go, wow, this was in the Bible. And inhabitants of Ein Dor and her towns, and the inhabitants of Taanach and her towns, and the inhabitants of Megiddo. Of course, we know Megiddo exists. And her towns, even 3 countries. Yes, the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of those cities, but the Kenayim would dwell in the land. Yet it came to pass, when children of Yashrael were waxing strong, that they put at the Kenayim to tribute. So I want you to see something, because I know somebody will ask this question. Why do you think they couldn't run the Kenayim out? Anybody have an idea? Now please listen. So please look at kind of the silliness here of the way that we've been programmed to think because of where we came from. Now this Elohim, this great Elohim, right? This Elohim who flooded the earth, this Elohim who called Avram out of the most wicked place, Ur of the Chaldees, where they were killing babies and drinking blood and all the things Abraham did. He did all of those things, folks. And so he come out and he crossed over. How did he cross over? The crossover is by listening to Elohim. He listened to him, and not crossing over as you heard him, but you walked away. Following him is listening to him, and oh, you just crossed over from the unrighteous to the, did you see it? That's what Hebrew means. It's to cross over from unrighteousness back. It's the picture of Teshuvah even in the name. And so Avram wasn't a perfect kid. He fought that stuff. He knew instinctively inside of him something wasn't right about this that my dad is doing. And so inevitably Elohim saw that. It put him in his sight. How you can be in his sight, friend. And I'll tell you what, I believe that the plan actually works. The more we get in his sight, the more we fear him, because the more we see of him. See, when you're far away from him, I've heard people go, well, why would you fear him? I thought, Well, of course, you're far away from him. If you knew him, you would go, ooh, I got no problems in fearing him, right? So it actually comes from your lack of knowledge of who he is. He wants us to see that anyway. Yet the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of these cities, but the Canaan that dwell in the land. So here's what they did. They compromised Elohim. Well, we know that Elohim didn't give them the power after bringing Joshua and all the millions of people that they've slaughtered with swords, and all of a sudden this one little city of Canaan can't be driven out. Folks, this was a picture to us of spiritual sickness. When we get away from Yah, we lose the power to conquer. That's why sin is so prevalent even in the Christian world. Because they have no power over sin. Folks, there are spiritual wickedness in high places, thank you, the Apostle Paul, that are warring against you. That is a truth. He was a Jew, he was a Hebrew, he was a Benjamite, but he was also of the family of Arad, which is why he was Hellenistic. But think about those words. Yah did all of this, parted the Red Sea, kept 1 million people in a desert, had to create a lake, and he can't run these little people out of this part, a small part of a piece of land? Wow. I would wonder if the leaders of this place, this sector, I would wonder if they ever even thought about why they couldn't run them out. Okay, well, we'll settle. We'll take their money. If we can't get rid of them, we'll just take their money. Y'all remember what he did to Saul when Saul said, forget the money? What did Samuel do? Was Samuel happy? Samuel was a righteous man. He came back, and all of a sudden Saul had walked off the path, and he wasn't happy, and he knew even more than that. He knew Yah wasn't going to be happy. And what did Yah do? Today you have been removed. You are no longer king. I don't care if you're wearing that crown and walking in that place, and everybody bows and kisses your feet. You're not the king of Israel. See, we don't know that. Oh, that's masculine toxicity. Yah ain't playing games, folks. If he tells us something, he means it. He's serious as a heart attack. I never forget the day in my gun shop, he accosted me almost. I say it like that. He said to me, and folks, I've never had him speak to me in this manner. But he was very angry with me. And he said to me, and I'll share with you, every word that I said is true. Now I need you to understand that part of the revelation of that did not come to pass until 20 years later. What he was also telling me is that there are lots of words that are not his. But the ones he said are true. That's why I have no problems in making the change I have. Because all my life, ever since he said that to me, I've been looking for what is and isn't true in the Word. And if you start looking for what is and what isn't true, you'll find the same. That's my story. And I lost my place. But the Canaan would dwell in that land. Yet it came to pass when the children of Yisrael were waxing strong that they put the Canaan to tribute, which is really even worse because that means at first they couldn't overcome them, then they got strong all of a sudden, and instead of run them out, they couldn't run them out, so they said, okay, well, we can't run you out, we'll just empty your pockets. When I was a highwayman, along the coast road I did ride, with sword and coin by my side. I am still alive. I'm sorrowful. Some of you might have liked it. And the children of Joseph spoke unto Yahusha, saying, Why have you given me but one lot and one portion to inherit? See, and I am a great people. For as much as YEHOVAH has blessed me hitherto, and Yahusha answered them, if you be a great people, then get you up to the wood country and cut down for yourself there in the land of the Perazim and of the Rephaim. If Mount Ephraim be too narrow for you, and the children of Yosef said, this hill is not enough for us. And all the Canaan that dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron, both they who are at Beit Sha'an and her towns, and they who are at the valley of Jezreel. We also know where that exists. And Yahushua spoke unto the house of Joseph over to Ephraim and to Manasseh, saying, you are a great people and have great power. You shall not have only one lot only. But the mountain shall be yours, for it is a wood, and you shall cut it down, and the outgoings of it shall be yours, for you shall drive off at the Canaan, though they have iron chariots, and though they be strong. Joshua said, so? This is what I'll tell you again if you didn't hear me the first time. You can have the hill, you can have the wood, but you got to run the people out yourself. Little bit of huge spiritual significance. Is it really true, dear friends? So please, on the heart path, is it really true that sometimes the giants in our lives are in our lives because we refuse to run them off? Anybody besides me ever recognize that? I'm sure you must have. Surely you get tired of struggling with yourself and failing from time to time. I do. I mean, maybe you don't. I hope so. But I don't like displeasing him. I don't like knowing that I've failed. Wow, not much help for him, was there? You got it. You're a big, strong people. Go over and take it. Even if they got chariots that you don't have, take it anyway. And I just wonder, the spiritual significance of that. I wonder how much really is ours that we could be possessing. Please hear me. I wonder how much of ours that we could be possessing. And I'm not just talking about things. I'm talking about spiritual victories as well as physical. Because the spiritual does manifest in the physical, you understand. But I wonder how much of that's being stopped by us. In Christianity, they were so bent on it. I used to I hate to say this, but I used to stand back and listen to some of these songs they would sing. Person talking about they got the devil under their feet, under their feet, under their feet. Honey, the devil is in the Shamayim, standing in the presence of Elohim, accusing you for what you're doing down there right now. You ain't got nobody under your feet. Isn't that really sad? We like to lie to ourselves so we feel empowered. You have no clue how many people I saw walk out of Christian churches after singing songs like that, and they would just be as high as a kite. And before the night came, they were losers again. Why are we trying to put the devil under our feet? Why don't we try to put our own sin under our feet? Now, that's a good thing. And sin is not the devil. Sin is you. It's your failings, not the devil's failings. Sin is failing. The devil didn't fail. He's being very successful. Thank you very much. And Hasatan is being the same enemy to all humanity that he's always been. He just likes to throw that little hook in there that makes people turn and go a different direction. Yah says, I want you blessed. I want you to be the head and not the tail. But we got to do something. It's not like we were handed. I used to hear them in Christian church. They would read that verse, and you could get all the people from 5 years old to 100 years old in the church would stand up, and they would gladly say that I am blessed, and I am the head and not the tail, and above and never beneath. I just read that to you in the scriptures that we read earlier, but it's coming out of the context of the Christian version, which it's also in the Christian version taken from the old version. You know how that works. So, wow. Today we can have a picture that you ever ran from somebody because you knew you was guilty. You owed them money and you didn't want to pay them, or maybe you didn't have it to pay them, and so you did everything you could do to avoid them. I think a lot of times that's how we live with Elohim. Rather than go through the battle to change ourselves, we would rather just hide from him and think somehow that's good. I get it. I've done the same. But it ain't. You want to be good with Elohim, you have to be honest. Can't be a liar to him or to other people. So, I think he wants us to be blessed. I believe exactly what he said. I want you to be blessed. But you got to do it my way. And there's no other option. There's no Bill of Rights in the heavenlies. The Bill of Rights is the Torah. This is the bill, and it's right. So, shalom to each and every one of you. I hope you have a better week. I don't know if you guys are watching this, but Elohim's been really active lately, speaking a lot and showing things that are just them little things that make you smile and feel, I guess as some say, you get the warm and fuzzies when you know he just spoke to you something that just melts your heart. Yeah, he wants that for everybody. He doesn't ever want it just for some. Not everybody will attain it, but it doesn't mean that they couldn't have. It just means that they chose not to. So, blessings to each and every one of you. Hope you have a wonderful week. I want to read this before we pray. YEHOVAH will kneel before you. He will bless you. That whole thing is still it's resurfaced inside of me again. That the creator of all heaven and earth would bow down in humility to show me what I should be. He will kneel before you. And when he comes, he brings gifts, wisdom, understanding, and will guard you with his hedge of protection. I don't know that I've ever seen that in the way. There's several things, and I'm just going, wow. There's no way that could have happened. It had to be him. YEHOVAH will illuminate the wholeness of his being toward you, bringing order, and that's the other piece, the knowing his character, the seeing him here. He tells us what he wants, and he tells us that that's what that is. That's righteousness. And if you are in righteousness, then you are looking me straight in the face. Reason that we can't look somebody straight in the face when we owe them or something is because we're guilty of shame. Fix the shame, and you can quit being ashamed. YEHOVAH will illuminate the wholeness of his being toward you, and yes, he does, ever increasingly. You're bringing order, and he will give you comfort and sustenance. Folks, those are all outworkings of the first part of that. You'll never get to the end. The end is not yours unless the front is. YEHOVAH will lift up his wholeness of being and look upon you. See, there again, there it is, isn't it? It's just everywhere. Yah will look on you. Yah's watching you. Yah saw his righteousness. Yah, boy, this Yah is pretty active about people, isn't he? YEHOVAH will lift up his wholeness of being. So in other words, let you see him, and then at the same time, and he looks upon you, so that means he sees you. So what are we doing here? Do you see the picture? We're looking at each other. I'm looking at him in love, and he's looking at me in love. I don't know how you don't get excited about that. If I was a Pentecostal, I might speak in tongues and run around and cluck like a chicken. That makes me feel good. My Elohim turn his laser sights off on me, and I'm in the right place doing the right thing, so I'm not ashamed to look at him. I truly do think that must be the definition of peace. When Elohim is looking at you and you looking back. Wow, stop and ponder that, friend. That's worth $1 million right there. Because I guarantee you'll see his promises come to pass if that happens for you. more than just a casual glance. And he will look upon you, and he will set in place everything you need to be whole and complete. That's a covenant promise. If you and me are locked in eye content, folks, everything you need will be provided. Wow. That's crazy. That's good news right there. I don't need to go to no New Testament. The good news is in his scriptures. Whew. Well, I hope I haven't bored anybody. If I'm not anything else, hopefully I'm not boring. But if I am, I apologize. Just learning how to be me. That's the hardest thing sometimes. You ever notice that? Huh? You start being you, and then all of a sudden people don't want to be around you, and you go, wow, I must not be a very nice person to be around. I better quit being me. I better start being somebody else. Then they'll like me more, right? No, I know none of you have ever done that. I never have either, but I thought about it. Could have happened. I'll quit. Shalom to each and every one of you. Have I prayed? I thought. Okay. Father, bless you today. Thank you for your goodness and for your mercy. Thank you for these wonderful words I believe you've given. I think that there is much real-time, real-world truth to lead us to this theme, which is a relationship with you. Might not be orthodox, but I'm thankful for that. So I bless you. I ask you that you be with us. I ask you that you help those who are in alignment with you to better find the path that they're to walk on. Because we will all end up on the same path if we're walking to you. I bless you and I thank you today. Amen. Brother Dave. All right. Well, Shabbat Shalom to each and every one of you. For those of you that are with us, I think I sent the calendars out and the service times and stuff, so hopefully that'll make all of that a little bit easier. It got a little more wordy than it has in the past, but I think it's a little more concise and gives a little better information. So Shalom to each and every one of you.